Hello everyone and welcome to our LCK preview show. We're going to be going over all of the major teams. We're going to look at some of the major storylines and all of these interesting off-season roster swaps. For those of you guys who do not know, my name is Ovilee May, and today I am joined by two legendary ladies. We have Emily Rand, who is a writer for ESPN, and honestly, Emily, I say this every single time I ever introduce Emily, but Emily is just the biggest League of Legends head that I know. So hello, Emily.
Hi.
Welcome. And then we also have our regional guest for today, Ashley Kang. Ashley is the head of Horizon, and she also works as ESPN's LCK correspondent. Ashley, hello. How is it in Korea right now?
Korea is extremely cold. How much was it? -30 Fahrenheit. So I'm just stuck in my room, getting food delivered straight to my doorstep because Korea is awesome like that, and just waiting for LCK to start. It's only 3 days to go now.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So LCK is 3 days away for you.
Yeah.
Okay, and it starts, I believe, on the 16th California time, because LPL starts on the 14th. I'm pretty sure.
Starts, basically tomorrow night.
Yeah, because that starts at 1 a.m. on the 13th. Yeah, and then the LCK starts on the 16th. I'm pretty sure early morning as well.
Yeah, so it starts on 5 p.m. Korean Standard Time, which should be morning in your time, but it will be 16, yeah.
Yeah. So we got some early league coming up. Unfortunately, LCS doesn't start until the 26th. So we have the LPL, the LCK, and then we have LEC sandwiched in between there. And then, you know what, us in America, we're just waiting to see the guinea pigs try out all the stupid new meta stuff, and then we're just gonna profit.
And then the real region's gonna come in. Right?
Yeah. We're the ringers. People are gonna. It seems like we're copying them, but in the end, everyone's gonna be copying us. I mean, who made it to semifinals? Exactly. But guys, let's go ahead. We have a lot. We have a lot to go over.
It's all the nightmares coming through.
Oh yeah.
All the flashbacks.
Yeah. For the
you saw the press tent, and I'm just God, I still have nightmares about it.
For those of you guys who were watching the coverage that we were doing at ESPN, all three of us were actually working with ESPN at, I think, from groups onwards. And there were some really tense moments when when all the Korean teams were just taking a nosedive. And I was just standing the victorious North American over the Korean fans, and I'm just yes, this is Cloud9. Suck it. This is the strength of NA. Ignore Team Liquid, but this is the strength of NA. So
don't look at
it. As we visited Bexco, which was the venue for group stages and quarterfinals one last time, I was telling Emily, okay, Emily, we are walking through the graveyard of LCK. Can you bury me here? Just put a tombstone on top of you.
All right, well, we actually do have all 10 teams we're going to talk about today, as well as some of the roster changes. So I want to go ahead and jump right in, if that's cool with you guys. Thinking we start small and then we move our way into the big fish. So first team that I kind of want to talk about is Jin Air Green Wings. They got rid of their top laners as well as their junglers. But, okay, so this is the pick that I'm super excited for. I want to hear what you guys think. I loved watching G-Rex play during Worlds, and they just picked up Stitch as one of their new AD carries. So I'm a little freaking out over that because I'm oh my gosh, I want to see more of him. What's your guys' take?
I think the main issue I have with Jin Air actually isn't with Stitch. I just feel bad. I kind of feel bad for him because if it was anyone but Teddy that he was replacing, I mean, outside of a few other players, you'd kind of be oh yeah, Stitch is a pretty good AD carry. But he is replacing Teddy, which is unfortunately still a downgrade just given how talented Teddy is. Mm-hmm. So that's all it'd be.
Yeah. In Korea, we call the Jin Air roster the dollar store. So the comparison being that given the budget, which I assume is quite limited, they have recruited all the decent B-tier players. So I don't think they have done terribly, but like Emily said, with Teddy going, like, it has to be a downgrade. It's unfortunate.
And too. I actually, like, I'm probably one of, like, 3 people that likes I guess, and thinks that he could be...
I like
he still could be a good jungler. I think he just needs... Again, like, we've seen him improve with experience. I think he just needs a little bit more time. And unfortunately, I don't know a lot about Seas. Malrong was actually really impressive when he first came into the league. But I haven't seen him in a while, and he had a very volatile, kind of aggressive style, which actually talking to the LCK teams and management is kind of what a lot of these teams are looking for, right? Because they think that one of the things that hurt them at Worlds was that their teams were too passive. So it'll be interesting to see how he does, but it's kind of like where... I watched grow from that point of being kind of overly aggressive and invading without vision or invading without lane pushes. And I want to see if Malrong has grown past that as well, because I honestly haven't seen much of him in a while.
So where would you put these guys? Kind of like, would you put them middle of the pack or lower in the pack?
So this is the first team that we are mentioning. So even though that Jin Air has pulled up a decent tier, I do have to say that it's highly unlikely that Jin Air is going to go to relegations, just given how competitive other LCK teams are, which we are going to talk about in a sec.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I think it's unfortunate because, again, like, you look at this lineup and you're like, okay, it's like not awful, right? But the problem is that so many other teams upgraded as well, and it's going to be really tough for them. So I would put them like bottom, and if they somehow end up being really good, somehow they hit like an insane synergy with each other or something, maybe they creep up into like middle of the pack.
Got it. Well, let's go ahead and move on to our next team, Hanwha Life. So this was funny because I asked you guys before we had started the show, because I feel like I've watched LCK, I've kept like my tabs on the top teams at least, but then Hanwha, I'm like, wait, I've never heard of these guys before, but you said that they used to be Rocks Tigers?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So tell me about them.
Okay, so we all know about the Rocks Tigers. So the old Rocks Tigers disbanded, and they went through the roster changes, and they have been acquired by a company called Hanwha Life Insurance in summer 2018. And what's interesting is Hanwha Life is a very big company, what we call Jebel in Korea, and it's quite promising that they are putting money into LCK, especially after Samsung has exited LCK. So they, as far as I know, they got a decent budget under them, and in this off season they made a 10-man roster, as they like to do in the previous season. So they kept the bottom lane, which is like Sangyun and Ki at the moment. They are the starting bot lane at the moment, who I think is quite decent, and they also made some changes on top lane on jungle. But what do you think about the current roster of Hanwha Life Esports, Emily?
So I think I actually really liked Hanwha Life last year. If anyone ever listened to me talk about them, what I really appreciated about the team was that they seemed to have a really good understanding of their own weaknesses, and then they knew how to cover that up either with drafting or just how they wanted to play in a given meta. I think the bot lane changes in summer really affected this team negatively because Songyun is more of a, I would say, traditional player, even though he came out individually and played some mages and was actually like super impressive on Rise. I was just like, wow, you must like spam Rise and solo queue like even before the bot lane changes happen. So I actually really love their bot lane. I really liked how they kind of went about attacking other teams by, instead of overly focusing on their opponents, really focusing on themselves. I actually thought they had one of the better early games in Korea. So like while you had these other teams that were kind of focusing on waiting until late game or 5v5 team fighting, Hanwha Life actually had very strong early games. Their problem is that they never knew how to close a game. And that's actually what kept them out of playoffs. I like Sohwan. He's coming over from Jin Air. I actually think he's quite talented. You might recognize Mujin if you've seen Flash Wolves internationally. Mujin is kind of a puzzle to me because I don't watch a lot of LMS, but the only team I watched last year was Flash Wolves, pretty much.
I think we all did.
Yeah, and so in season, Mujin is like the most boring jungler. Like he just, he farms and he's good, but he's just not. He's not the kind of aggressive player that. Again, I think a lot of teams in Korea. I'm gonna keep repeating this just because I've heard it from multiple management in Korea. Is that they really want to be aggressive because they feel like that was a huge shortcoming at Worlds, and Mujin in season is super boring and then goes to the international stage and is ganking at level 2 and I'm like, who are you? What are you doing? So I'm curious to see what Mujin we get, presuming that he will be the starter. I haven't been all that impressed with Bono and Temps. They're coming over from the old BBQ Oliver's lineup. Again, these aren't bad players. Temp's kind of a wave clear mage player, where Lava was a lot more known for Zoe. So maybe they'll just swap those based on champion pool. I'm not really sure what they're going to do with the mid lane, but that's the mid jungle is kind of the thing that I'm the most curious about. And if everyone else in Korea is going super, super aggressive, I don't know how this lineup will do because their mid and jungle options are, in my opinion, a little bit more passive.
Ashley, do you have anything to add?
So I might slightly disagree with Emily on this. So I actually think that Sohan at the moment is a downgrade from Linderang, who I also thought was a decent top laner. So Jin Air and Hanwha Life actually swapped their top laners this year. So Linderang, who used to be on Jin Air, Linderang, who used to be on Hanwha Life Esports, went to Jin Air, and Sohan came to Hanwha Life. So for me personally, I think the entire top side, top mid jungle, does seem a bit shaky at the moment. So I think it's going to be a bit of an imbalanced roster at the moment.
Got it. All right, well, that was a lot on Hanwha. Let's move on to Kingzone DragonX. So my question as the casual LCK fan is, where did these guys go? Because it felt like not too long ago, we saw them at MSI, they were taking on RNG, and then we didn't see them at Worlds. I think Gen.G was the one who knocked him out and moved on into Worlds, and then they were like, meh, at Caspa Cup. So and now they're making all of these changes to their roster. So to me, it seems like they're a little bit weaker. But what do you guys think?
So that story is so amazing because I remember even at the spring split, we were quoting Kingzone DragonX as possibly the strongest team to grace League of Legends scene in the history, and apparently they were gonna
historic run, historic record run through spring.
Yeah, and I thought they were gonna perform really well, given that Riot pushed the meta towards kind of an aggressive early skirmish style, and we know that Khan is a very strong carry. Peanut is known for his aggressive style. BDD is a very solid mid laner, and I have a lot of respect for Prey and Gorilla, but the team kind of seems to have fallen apart big time during summer split, and it may have been a personality issue, it may have been something else, but possibly a management issue, but yeah, they didn't even qualify for Worlds, and as a result of that, every single member of the starting roster moved to other teams in LCK, as well as Gorilla, who went to Misfits Gaming in LEC. So they have promoted Rascal and Kaz, who were the sub-top laner and jungler for Kingzone, to the starting roster, and they made some interesting acquirements. So Pawn, who used to be on the bench for KT Rolster for quite a while, is now the mid laner for Kingzone DragonX, and they got a very interesting mix going on in bot lane. So they got Deft and Tucson. So for me, even though I think Rascal and Kaz is a solid top laner and jungler, I think this Kingzone has yet another imbalance where I see the bot lane being quite strong. I think Deft and Tucson is going to be a very, very good bot lane as long as they get their teamwork sorted out, but I just don't see the top lane and the mid lane performing as well as, Deft and Tucson. But what's your take, Emily?
Yeah, Emily, I remember you really talking about Tucson, I think, during Worlds, so I'm curious what you have.
I mean, he performed really badly at Worlds, but I don't think, again, like, when I look at that Afreeca team, I actually don't really fault any of the players' like individual performances. I definitely think, especially since they went on record, and you can even watch the interviews with Ashley from the World Championship, where they talk about their mental issues. So
yeah,
I'm gonna blame Tucson for that. He was actually a huge part of why the Freecs were in the spring finals. And he was like an incredibly good on engaged supports. And that's kind of always been his bread and butter previously because he was an Alistar player, but it just his Rakan and his Alistar were both really good last year. And it helped Afreeca get to an LCK final. I think Deft is still really good. Their problem is definitely in the mid lane for me. I think Rascal and Cuz are fine. Obviously, Cuz wasn't going to start over Peanut unless it was a kind of synergy issue. You noticed when it seemed like BDD was a bit uncomfortable or BDD and Peanut weren't syncing up for whatever reason, they would put Cuz in because Cuz and BDD had played together a lot more on the old Longzhu lineup before they became Kingzone. So I think Cuz is okay. I've never seen him kind of reach the and it's unfair because he was ascribed a lot of potential based on his solo queue performance when he came into the league. I've never seen him kind of unlock that potential. And Rascal is okay. Again, the problem for me is the mid lane. Nahun is someone who's had a really unfortunate run of things. He was on that Origin roster that was not good, and obviously that's not his fault at all. But we've never really seen anything out of him that speaks to kind of like an untapped like super talent. And then Pawn, everyone knows his problem for years has been that he has a back injury, which unfortunately is not going to improve, right? And that just means that he can't, or he presumably can't unless he's like forcibly hurting himself. Like he just can't practice as much as other players can because he can't sit for like super long periods of time. I know that he's still a really smart player. I know that while he was on KT, even when he wasn't starting, like he would appear on streams like giving Smeb advice on like what runes and masteries he should run, and he's a smart person. But yeah, the mid lane is going to be, I think, a pretty big problem for this team, in my opinion. Yeah. If they want to make playoffs, there's going to have to be something that happens with that mid lane because, for me, mid is a really important part of the map, and it helps all other lanes, and it helps jungle, even if you're focusing on your side lanes, right? You want to have a strong mid lane, and that is the issue for me with this team.
Ashley, you were talking like you had something to throw in.
So Pawn actually has been killing it at solo queue apparently. And it seems, and apparently he's got some of his health issue back on track. So I do have some hopes on Pawn finally bouncing up because I do think he's still a player with a very, very high ceiling. So, Kingzone seems like a puzzle with 5 different colored and shaped pieces. So.
Oh, jeez.
That's a good way of putting it.
All right.
Yeah. So I don't know. Like Kingzone is a big uncertainty for me. I can see them going to playoffs, or I can see them going to relegations. Like I can't place them exactly in LCK.
I got it. So it's just one or the other. Well, let's move on. Let's talk about a team that's newer to the scene, previously known as Battle Comics. This is Sandbox Gaming, right?
They should have kept the name.
Should have kept the name to Battle Comics?
Yeah. I will die on this hill. They should have kept it.
All right, well, so what? Now they're just like Sandbox Gaming. I mean, like Battle Comics at least like somewhat strikes fear into the hearts of their enemies. Instead, it's like Sandbox, like, hey guys, let's want to make a sandcastle? Knock, knock, knock. Yeah, I kind of agree. But I mean, they knocked out. It was them and Damwon who knocked out MVP and BBQ. What does the future look like for this team?
I think they're really. Oh no, you can go.
I just wanted to describe a background on why the name Sandbox Gaming came to be. So Battle Comics actually got acquired by like a organization called Sandbox, and they're almost like an entertainment org for streamers. So they own a bunch of streamers. So you know how SM Entertainment owns like, you know, SNSD and EXO and other companies. So Sandbox as an agency owns a bunch of streamers, and they acquired Sandbox Gaming, and that's how the name came to be.
Wait, so K-pop stars are linked in with Sandbox?
Streamers.
Oh,
Streamers.
I thought you said K-pop.
Yeah.
I got so excited. So excited.
I was making a comparison to K-pop and how a bunch of them are like owned by the same agency.
All right,
like
okay.
SM or YG or stuff.
They basically were acquired by an agency named Sandbox.
Man, okay, I don't like this team anymore. They baited me. they can lose. I don't care if they're the new kids. Like, sorry. Continue, Ashley. I apologize.
It's okay. It's completely fine. Interesting fact about Sandbox Gaming: their support player, Joker, is now the oldest member of LCK, including Score. I was also gonna say Ambition.
Called Joker, by the way. Back when he started playing.
Man, how many years ago was that?
Oh god, it was on the Star Tale. It was a while ago.
Yeah.
It was like season 2, I think.
Cloud Temple's older than me, and that's pretty old. So Joker is born in 1990. He actually served military service, and he started playing League of Legends properly after he came back from the Korean Army service. So he played League of Legends as a hobby, and he wanted to do something out of it. So he made like a university league group, like a team in university, and he recruited a bunch of players, and they kept promoting themselves, and they went to challenges. Eventually they promoted themselves to LCK. So they have a bit of an underdog story behind them, like this group of, you know, rookies banded in this pillar of Joker. But so that's the story of Sandbox. They haven't been hyped up as much as the other team got their promoted this year, Damwon Gaming, and they pretty much keep their roster, excluding Soar, who I think got replaced by Wiser at the moment. So yeah, I think Sandbox Gaming, to be honest, isn't as a good team as Damwon Gaming. I don't see them being as explosive or being as high tier, like having a higher ceiling as Damwon Gaming. And for me, if I had to rate this team, it will be about relegation, like just avoiding relegation. I don't see Sandbox Gaming as a playoffs team, but what's your take on the roster, Emily?
Or Emily, I wanna say, do you want to talk about Sandbox, or do you just want to jump straight into Damwon? Because Damwon is also the team that I'm kind of excited to talk about, because you kind of got me hyped up on them.
Yeah, I mean, I actually don't have a lot to say about Sandbox. I think if you want to watch one player, like, I think their story is cool, like Ashley said. If you want to watch one player on this team, it's probably Fleek, who, outside of having a name that you will probably remember because, you know, kind of cute, I guess. He is, you know, a young, like, jungle talent, and he is, I mean, I think his mechanics are obviously very good. I think he has a lot of... I don't even want to say issues, because jungle is like such a weird position, right? Like, and I think in order to be a good jungler, like, you do kind of have to improve with experience, because part of it is just learning about how the game works and learning about what your opponents do and adjusting to that is a huge part of jungling. And so, like, I don't want to say Fleek has issues, because he doesn't. He just needs experience. But if there's someone on this team that you should watch, I would say it's him, because I do think he has a lot of raw talent.
Cool. Emily, do you also want to start us off on Damwon?
Yeah, so speaking of jungler raw talent, my boy Canyon, I actually really like this team. I was excited to see Canyon play ever since I heard, again, so, like, we'll get this out of the way, because being the Worlds, either boot camp or, like, during Worlds, being the, like, Scrim Gods is actually not necessarily a good name to have.
Yeah.
You remember the first team that was, like, beating up on Western teams, and everyone was like, oh man, like, this team, because they have BDD and Ghost, is going to be amazing. And it was CJ Entis, and they actually got relegated that same year even though BDD did end up being like an insane player, right? So it's not necessarily the best moniker to earn, but Damwon Gaming were doing very well in scrims against Western teams during the World Championship, and that's kind of how I heard about them, and also Canyon, outside of the games I had seen them play in the promotion tournament. You may also have heard of Nuclear because he has been on a few teams. I remember when he was in a game and had this like insane score on Lucian and his team still lost and he just looked like so sad. So obviously he has a lot of raw talent. Nuguri is another player that people are hyping up, as well as Showmaker because of their solo queue performances. I think the thing for this team, a lot of people are comparing them to Griffin because Griffin came into the league and they did so well, and now you have this team that's been scrimming really well, and they did so well in the Kespa Cup, right? Like they upset the new SKT lineup. I think the big thing about this team is that they still lack a lot of experience, and they don't have that framework or mentality that Griffin had, because Griffin, when CV Max came and coached that team, they kind of came up together with this motto of 5 is 1, right? So that's why their team fighting was so strong coming in, as they had a mindset of how they wanted to play. I don't see that from Damwon. I do think that they'll improve with time, and again, I just think they're super talented. But if you want to see a difference as to like where they're at and where Griffin is at, you can actually look at their games against Griffin in the Kespa Cup, and Canyon gets just absolutely like destroyed by Tarzan. Yeah. So I like this team a lot. I think they're really exciting. I think you should definitely watch them. I think people should temper their expectations a bit, because I don't see them coming in and just like raising through the LCK like Griffin did last year.
Got it. Ashley, you want anything to add?
So, like, everyone in the Western audience at least became fully aware of Damwon Gaming after they beat SKT at Kespa Cup, and SKT roster was so hyped after the acquisition they made, and it was like, oh my god, who is this Damwon Gaming that just knocked out SKT? But we gotta give that event a bit of a doubt, because SKT was still figuring out the teamwork within their roster, while Damwon Gaming pretty much maintained their roster from 2018. So they had like a head start in terms of the teamwork, which I think both Damwon and SKT coaching staff is aware of. Just like Emily mentioned, all of the roster is a big solo queue stars. Nuguri, who's been on like top 10 of the Challenger for quite some time. Canyon, who Emily talked about quite some time. You guys might know him as Jug King, who made his name by becoming #1 on Korean solo queue, which is like a big thing in the Korean community. So I agree that they need a bit more stage experience in order to become a better team. But what I'm really excited about is Coach Kim jumping on as the coach, like the strategy coach for Damwon Gaming. And for people who don't know who Coach Kim is, he's the head coach that took and won World Championship for IG. He managed to instill that level of teamwork to IG, who was also thought to be a group of very strong laners, but not being able to gel as one team. So given that Damwon Gaming has individual players that have a lot of potential, and Coach Kim is coming in to like almost provide a synergy as well as a solid pick and ban that the players can play around, I actually think Damwon Gaming has a lot of potential.
So we should be super pumped to see if Coach Kim is going to take Damwon all the way, or like see, that's kind of what I'm hearing. I'm getting excited for it. So no. I like to oversell things a little bit, but I'm excited.
Temper your expectations.
I'm not going to temper my expectations, Emily. I like to go full in with the hype. They're going to win. Well, so I don't mean that, but I mean like
now, like months from now, you can go back to this VOD and be like, I'm God.
Yes, how dare you get on my level. I called it, put it on Reddit. No, but I just want to say, because like in my head, I have kind of like the image of like Mr. Miyagi teaching like all of these little rookies like how to slowly climb up through LCK. That's what filtered through my brain.
I see them as a playoff team. There you go.
Ooh,
that's me.
I like it.
So another thing that I think benefits Damwon Gaming is they still play they're not hesitant to play that early game skirmish style that other Korean teams are trying to adopt at the moment. And like, one thing that Korean teams were criticized quite heavily during Worlds is like they rely on macro too much. You take Baron, we're gonna take Elder. You take the top lane tower, we take the bot lane tower. We're gonna bag, we're not gonna like engage on early game team fights, and that's quite refreshing about Damwon Gaming's playstyle. They remind me a bit more of the LPL teams almost. So, and I think that playstyle is gonna favor them because I think the meta is gonna stay that way for a while. So,
all right.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you brought that up because I'll just tail onto that before we move on to another team. Mm-hmm. Of all the teams I saw at the Kespa Cup, in terms of, again, all these Korean coaches and teams talking about we need to get more aggressive, whatever that means. I actually don't think it means you should abandon everything from what you would consider like the old Korean play style, I guess. But Damwon are a lot more willing to take early risks, more so than even, in my opinion, Griffin. And it doesn't actually always work out, especially if, you know, the team has a better jungler and a better understanding of how to play the game. But I do give Damwon a lot of credit for that. And unlike a lot of these other orgs who've been around for a while and maybe playing the same style, it's going to be a lot easier for them to adjust if they do want to play a more aggressive, punchy early game style than the rest of these teams.
All right, so Ashley, I bullied you a little bit, so I will reward you as a sign of, you know, peace and good intention. I know that you really wanted to freak out and fangirl over Griffin for like a solid minute, so please, here you go. I'm giving you the reins. Take us through the story of Griffin.
So the rise of Griffin during 2018 was meteoric, to say the least. It's something that simply doesn't happen in 2018 League of Legends, especially that all the industry has matured and the team quality has gone up so high. So for people who don't know about the story of Griffin, they were promoted into LCK at Summer Split. And as historically promoted teams go, people expected Griffin at most to go to playoffs. And in the first round of Summer Split, they only dropped a single match. And that is ridiculous given how competitive LCK is. And it's just so refreshing to see Griffin in LCK and also to see Damwon Gaming entering. They do not play games like other LCK teams. They do not rely on macro. They play very lane heavy without that much focus on vision. And I gotta just give props to Tarzan, who is only 19 years old and probably the best jungler in the world at the moment, if that's like a hot take. Insane mechanics, is not afraid to play off-meta picks such as Sejuani, so I don't know why he plays Sejuani at Kes, but it worked insanely well, and Gen.G ended up banning Sejuani, even though I haven't seen any other pro play Sejuani, and really interesting ganking path, amazing understanding of the games, can play around objectives super well. Another thing about Griffin, which Emily has touched upon, is since the conception of the team under CB Max, they focused on being as one. So in other teams, people talk about, hey, during team fights, try to communicate a lot, try to tell me what's going on. But what CB Max has mentioned in an interview is during team fights, try not to speak, almost telepathically try to understand what other players are thinking. This is what he actually said on the interview.
I've read CB.
You were giving me shit for the Miyagi stuff, and now you're telling me telepathy?
If you want to read a really interesting coaching interview, read any CB Max interview, because he's an interesting guy.
He actually said telepathy in one of the after game interviews, but he just wants all the 5 players to have such a synergy that during team fights that they don't have to speak to each other. They just understand where the AD carry is going to be. They understand when the top lane is going to engage. And surprisingly, weirdly enough, that's working well because Griffin, weirdly enough, isn't an early game stomp team. But if you go 50-50 with them, it's almost impossible to beat them after 20, like post 20 minute, because their team fight around objective is just ridiculous. So really excited to see Griffin, and just gonna add that they have made a very unconventional move of signing all their players until 2021. And that's really weird to see in LCK, where all the players make roster changes like, every 2 years. So yeah, pretty excited to see what Griffin's going to do this year and also in the coming years. But what do you think, Emily?
So when Griffin were going through, I was always like a bit more tempered, I guess, on Griffin. So my thing with Griffin when they were coming through LCK last year is like in the back of my mind, and I even wrote about it, I believe, towards the end of the season in an article for VP, where I was slightly concerned with how this team was beating up on the other LCK teams, because I'm like, what is wrong with these LCK teams that they can't manage to beat Griffin? Not to take away from the fact that and not to say that they're not a good team, because they are. Like, they vastly exceeded my expectations in performance, and they only improved. Like you pointed out, Tarzan, I actually think if you compare him at the beginning of the summer split to the end, it's actually insane how much he learned just from jungling against the rest of the LCK junglers, right? Like, he absorbed all that experience, and then he kind of spat it back out in the way he responded to his opponents the next time around. And I think that's amazing. It's actually phenomenal for a rookie player to be able to do that right off the bat.
So just to jump in, I know it's maybe getting just a little bit ahead of ourselves, but it seems like a solid roster. But are we worried? Let's say they totally dominate in the spring split. Let's say they find their way into MSI or something. Are we worried at all that even though they're great at home, like, they're not going to have the international experience to kind of carry them through?
Well, the thing that worried me about them previously was just that I was looking at them and I was like, I'm not super impressed with their early game, but a lot of other people seem to be. And I was like, what is it about their early game that these other teams, like, just aren't being proactive enough? Because I felt like if you were really proactive against them early, you'd be able to beat them. And that's actually one of the reasons why KT was able to beat Griffin. They not only handed them their first loss, but then they also beat them later on in the finals as well. I think with Griffin, I still would like to see a little bit more out of their early game. I'm still I'll still be a bit worried for Korea, because it'll always be like in the back of my mind. But this is a very strong team. In my opinion, the best team. Like, if I'm looking at all these teams going into LCK, they are rated top, even above the new SKT roster for now. At least until that roster comes together. I don't know if that's a hot take. But I think the other thing that I like about what they did in the off season, and again, I don't know how good he is because I don't have a lot of point of reference, but they picked up an extra support. And that tells me that they are aware of some of the weaknesses within the team as well, because my sticking point with this team has actually been Lehens. I think despite the fact that he is it's said that he's a very vocal leader on the team, right? He has a lot of experience, not necessarily in LCK, but just as a player. He's a bit older. He's been playing for a while. He was known for playing like really insanely weird picks or off-roll stuff to get to the top of solo queue, like Elise support and Singe. Not Singe support as far as I know, but just
Singe top, yeah.
Yeah. But I think Lehens does struggle sometimes in lane, or he might not be. And I don't know if it's because he's doing more early game shot calling. It could be one of those balance things. But his vision nets definitely were not as good as other supports. He had trouble matching support roams. And so the fact that they picked up an extra support is actually bodes well for Griffin, because it tells me, even if they don't sub out Lehens, that they are aware of where their team weaknesses are. And I like a team that can recognize not only like, hey, we're good at this, but also we need to leverage our strengths to cover up this weakness, or we need to be thinking about this weakness on the team. So that's actually something that I really liked out of Griffin in the offseason. They didn't make many changes, but bringing on an extra support tells me that they're thinking about that position and what Lehens does for the team versus maybe what another support would do for the team. And again, this isn't to like poop on Lehens because he's still good. Still saying he did have these troubles, and so it tells me that Griffin's thinking, and I like it.
All right, I'm gonna jump in. I'm gonna jump in really quick, Ashley. I don't mean to cut you off, but I want to move on to the next team so we don't just keep talking about. Because I know you want to, Ashley. I know you want to. We can have a 3-hour show just for Griffin, but I want to move on to the team that took the win off of them. Let's talk about KT Rolster because yeah, your team. I think everyone was pretty hopeful for them, but then unfortunately, it was IG who knocked them out in Worlds in like the quarters, but. Those were also intense. That was a pretty intense series. Like, I really... Was that the one with the base race?
Yes.
That was the series with the base race. I remember Flower screaming, and I remember being in the press room just going, like, what's going on? And then not knowing who was... Because of the cameras. I mean, so that was pretty hype for me. But, I mean, I know everyone likes the BDD pickup, but I really like the Snowflower pickup. Ashley, because I know Emily's going to really want to talk about this. I just start with you really quick.
So it does... Okay, I think Snowflower is a decent pickup, but I don't think he's a top-tier support player like Mara or even... I will actually put Snowflower under Tusin, if that is my hot take. I think people are very aware of Snowflower just because he went to Worlds along with Supermassive Roster. I think he is a solid, mechanically good support player, but I don't know whether he's like top tier, especially around vision. And I'm also quite, what's a good word? Like,
Ashley, you don't have to think that the players that I like are good. I loved seeing all of these names at Worlds, and whenever they pulled off little plays, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to see more of them. So when I see them pop on to a team that I know and I love and that I think is respected, that's when I'm like, oh sweet, they got a chance. You don't have to tell me, you don't have to lie to my face and say, yeah, Ovilee, they're a great player. No, God, Emily, they're trash. Don't tell her, but they suck. But please, Ashley, continue with bashing on my hopes and dreams.
I think Snowflower's mid-tier, but talking about bot lane, I really want to talk about the AD carry of KT Rolster because KT Rolster had a really weird off-season where they didn't announce the AD carry until the last minute because Bang went to NA and Prey suddenly announced that he's going to go on hiatus. So Korea had a very thin pool of AD carries to hire, so it seemed like KT Rolster was looking at everywhere. Oh, can we get Loken? Oh wait, he's gone to LPL. Oh, can we get Kramer? Oh my god, he's gone to LPL too. So, and in the end, they got a player called Gango, who previously played in LJL, and before that he was a big streamer in Korea, sometime known as a big Draven player, and obviously downgrade to Deft, who I think is a top tier AD carry, and I don't know. Even though Smab and Score continues to be a solid performers and BDD, which I think is a great pickup, I don't think that bot lane will be able to match the top and mid. And if KT Rolster crumbles, it'll be from the bot lane. But I'll let you speak, Emily, because I know that you want to talk all about the new roster of KT Rolster.
So, I kind of wish that they'd got Songyun and just brought him back and reunited him with Snowflower. I think
that would be so good.
For people who don't know, they like kind of came up together as streamers on like the original Afreeca Freecs team.
Rebels Anarchy.
Yeah, which was also Anarchy, who had like no funding before Afreeca picked them up. They were in like white polos with like ironed on things, and they didn't have a team house. It's a really interesting story actually. But anyway, I think the thing I like about Snowflower is that he, again, is a really good initiator. But in terms of what Mata did for this team with vision and shot calling, I don't think it's going to be as strong in those areas for sure. The bot lane itself worries me, not because of Snowflower, but again because of he actually also used to be called Skatch, and he played. I remember him from Unlimited Potential, and wasn't super impressive there for me. The big thing for this team that you want to be looking for is their top side. BDD is like, A+ tier, like S tier pickup. He's at the top of his position right now in Korea until like Faker kind of comes and takes it back for sure. And then I actually the pickup I probably like the most for KT outside of, again, because I think Snowflower is like a good engaged support. So if they're looking for skirmishes or team fighting, he will roam and he will like actually like gank lanes and stuff. So that should be interesting to see. But I actually like Umti because, again, Umti is a kind of jungler who I've always been like, okay, if he has someone to learn from, like we saw him do really well when he was paired with Wraith as his support, because Wraith is a really good jungler. He's known as being a really good jungler's support. Like when a jungler might be struggling in their position or they're learning that position, like Ambition, Wraith would kind of help them out with roams and share kind of half of the vision duties that maybe a better jungler would take. I saw Umti perform better with Wraith on the team, and so I'm actually hoping that he can soak up a lot of knowledge from Score, because again, I think he is talented and just needs experience and kind of maybe a mentor. So I actually really like that pickup, but I'm not sure how this KT team is going to do. I mean, the biggest thing for them would be to find an identity beyond the super team, right, of the past 2 years, because that was KT for 2 years, so much so that Mata in an SKT video accidentally introduced himself as KT Mata.
Whoops.
Yeah. So, I mean, I actually don't know how I feel about this KT lineup. I like the mixture of old and new, but I'm not sure how it's going to come together, and I have serious questions about their bot lane.
Awesome. All right, Ashley, I'm going to have you pick up on our next team. Let's go ahead and talk about Gen.G, our 2017 world champs that got stomped in groups and then lost 2 of their players to NA. Welcome, Crown and Core JJ, to the true competitive region. But they did pick up Peanut for the jungle, so that should be pretty exciting. Are you excited for this team, or what are you expecting from them?
So I actually wrote very emotional piece about the fall of Gen.G. Like a eulogy, so to speak. After Gen.G was eliminated from 2018 World Championship, you can look it around on ESPN. This I can confirm by talking to various people in Gen.G that Gen.G noticed that they were eliminated from 2000 Worlds because of their unproactive, focus on late game playstyle that other LCK team has been criticized for. So we all knew that Gen.G that had that one style where they kind of go half and half and rely on teamfight / ruler, the AD carry of Gen.G ability to hard carry. So they wanted to switch it up. So they got rid of both Haru and Ambition. They could have left, but they got Peanut, who is known as one of the more aggressive junglers in Gen.G, and their willingness to go more early game aggression was quite noticeable joining Casper Cup. And another thing that I wanted to say about the Gen.G is after Core JJ, who I think is a top tier, was a top tier support in LCK, and please look after him in NA. I really love him. They promoted live the sub support for Gen.G into the main roster, and everyone had a bit of a question around that. But during Casper Cup, he really stepped up, and he was really good at the proactive engages that Gen.G was focusing on. And I think it's really good that they have life as a backup to Core JJ, and I actually think this is a solid lineup, and it will all depend on whether they can structure their playstyle around Peanut, who has been known to command a bit of resource as well as having to have the team tailor the playstyle around him. But as long as you give him the resource, he will carry and make his presence known in the game. So I think it will really depend on whether they can restructure themselves around Peanut.
Emily, do you have anything really quick to add?
Really love life in the Casper Cup. And obviously, like, Casper Cup is not, just like Demacia Cup, Casper Cup should not be taken as a end-all, be-all rule for where teams are going to end up. in the LCK, but I think right off the bat, Gen.G showed a lot of existing synergy, which makes sense because they're one of the teams that changed actually the least in keeping Cuvée, Fly, Ruler, and then Life, who presumably was at least scrimming with the team because he has been on their lineup. But yeah, I really liked Life. I thought his engages were really good. I liked him with Ruler. It's obviously a very different style than Core JJ, who's like more lane focused. But I really liked it. And I think if the big thing for me is whether Life and Peanut can coordinate their aggression together. Like if Life can roam a lot more and start skirmishes, gank, kind of like how I described Snowflower's playstyle almost. Gank alongside Peanut, that would be really cool to see, and definitely something that's very different from the old Gen.G playstyle. We didn't yet see that, but I think they have the potential to obviously become something completely different.
I'm gonna cut you on that point, Emily, just so we can move on to the next one, because I know we have a little bit of time. I know Ashley has an appointment to get to, but I mean, I'll give you first dibs on the next team we're going to talk about, because I know you really wanted to talk about their coaching changes on Afreeca Freecs, or rather not coaching changes, but potentially any changing to their practice schedule, because I think we know Afreeca Freecs is well known for the 10-man roster, as well as the 4. Tell me about the scrim blocks. Refresh me, because I just remember it's ridiculous.
Yeah, it was like quadruple blocks.
Quad blocks, yeah.
Practicing like 16 hours a day or something ridiculous like that. This is all on record, by the way. But the coaching change I wanted to talk about is actually Nofei, who, if you watched our LPL preview with Raz yesterday, I talked about him leaving EDG, and he did a really good job for EDG. And if you don't know him from China and his success there, you might know him from the original Rocks Tigers lineup. He was their coach. And so I think, even though obviously Isla Vuv is still the head coach, and so I'm not sure if he is going to maybe adjust his practice plan. When they listed the rosters, just I think yesterday or the day before, they came out with like the official first half of the split lineups for LCK, and Afreeca most notably did not have like a full 10-man lineup like they previously had, or like we thought they had. So I think this team is going to be interesting. I'm hoping that Nofei can really bring... He's kind of known for coming up with really good drafts that he thinks his team can play. Now, with EDG, maybe they didn't execute them as well, and they still kept playing the same play style. But with this Afreeca team, I'm really curious to see what he can come up with, because this is a team that historically, since it was kind of Marin on the team, like way back in the day, they were kind of known for having like one weird, interesting look at an opponent, and then they would like lose the next 2 games. And so this is a team that has previously been known for being creative. Last year was very creative. They would separate full team fights into skirmishes and then kind of pick people off from there using Tucson for engage, and then they'd have like Kuro or Keen following up with a secondary engage in CC. So I'm looking forward to seeing what this team can do. I think the UCal pickup is good because as much as I love Kuro, and I think he brings a lot more stability to a team, I think UCal could be kind of a younger punch. He's going to make more mistakes, so he's not going to hold mid lane in the same way, but I think he is a bit stronger mechanically at this point. They did keep Spirit, who... You know, sometimes he goes on these like farming sprees where he doesn't do anything, and then that's really frustrating. But then occasionally you get that game where he's just insanely aggressive and ganking at level 2. So I hope that's the Spirit we see. And then they have, you know, the best performing top laner in Korea last year in Keen, who is just kind of insane and still performed pretty well, in my opinion, individually, even as Afreeca were kind of falling apart mentally. So the bot lane is a bit of a question mark. Aiming is played for the team, and he's been fine, and I think he'll continue to improve. And then they have Jelly, who's also been on the not even practice squad, because they basically just used it as like internal scrimming. But so he's been with the team for a while, and I know that again, like whispers from Western Scrims, the Afreeca B team was apparently better than the Afreeca A team. So we'll see how well those two do in LCK now that they're like the default starters, presumably. But I like this team, and yeah, Nofe, I want to see what he can bring to draft. Presumably, he's going to be standing on stage behind these guys.
All right, I wanna switch over to our last team because I know this is the biggest one to talk about, especially after their performance in 2018 and their absence at Worlds this year. It's SKT. But before we talk about them, thank you, Travis, for, I guess, sending all of the Travis mobs over and telling us that you're hungry. That's great. That's wonderful. Thank you. We'll send you some pizza, I guess, after we finish talking about SKT. So Ashley, we can kind of start with you. So this is kind of me because I was getting ready and I was checking in with the LCK periodically in 2018. What happened to the team that the world knew and loved? Like, how did they go from being world champions or at least like finalists to not even making it in 2018?
So, SKT had a lot of issues in 2018, and it's quite hard to pinpoint a single thing. Part of it is that a bit of a burnout that I feel that players were going through simultaneously at that time. In the recent interview that Banks have given, he did mention that like he was going through a bit of a burnout during 2017-18 period just from winning everything and continually attending all those tournaments because that's what happens when you win everything, and just feeling a bit thinned out. And same was happening with other part of the roster. Wolf had a bit of a health issue during 2018, and he tried to rotate to jungle for a bit, but it didn't quite work out. And Effort, the support player that came in, Wolf, took a bit of a time to kick off. So in the beginning of 2018, he made quite a few mistakes, especially on team fights. Blank, who I think is a good sub-jungler, wasn't obviously a suited candidate to be a starting jungler, and it's a bit of a mechanic issue, it's a bit of a mentality issue, but he just wasn't up for it. And yeah, I don't know what happened with Untara, even though he's quite a good solo queue player. SKT didn't decide to start Untara for multiple reasons, and Khan just wasn't a top laner. So it was a bit of everything, as well as they seem to have issues with shot calling. In team fights, they often look lost, like in Baron fights. Some of the players hitting Baron while other players trying to engage with the opponent team. So I think it was a bit of an everything, and in the midst of all this chaos, Faker looked stressed, Faker looked lost. It looked like the pressure to carry this team, almost like people used to mean 1v9, was just crushing down on his soft shoulders, and that in turn was impacting his performance. We keep talking about how he was recalling randomly on River and just getting caught out and dying. And I think it was a bit of everything, and I can go on about it for like 30 minutes, but yeah. Mentality issues, roster not as being as top tier as previous years, multiple players facing burnout, and Faker in the middle of it all, just feeling too much pressure.
And their answer to those results was basically overhauling the entire roster with the exception of Faker. So Emily, is this going to work for them? Is this going to solve their problems, or are they just going to potentially have more synergy problems that they need to work through?
I mean, this is something that needed to happen, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't need to pick up the players that they did, which I'm actually pretty happy with this lineup. If anyone has read anything that I've written about SKT in the past month, they know that already, that I do like this lineup a lot. But I think the thing for me with this team is that you have a very interesting mixture of, again, it's kind of like what I said about KT, where you have an interesting mixture of players who are at different levels in are different places in their career, and they have different levels of experience on a variety of teams. I think the only thing that concerns me, and I'm sure like if SKT come out and they crush and this player that I'm about to mention does amazing, you can come back and be like, Emily, what the F were you talking about? You're a moron, etc. But I'm actually worried about Khan. I think he is stagnated in the past year. I don't think he's performed very well. Even when Kingzone were kind of going through their early spring run, I think he had issues. And I don't know whether it's like, you never know whether flanks and teleport issues from a top laner are a team communication issue, or if that player is just kind of like pressing the go button whenever they feel like it. Mm-hmm. Since I can't hear their comms, obviously I don't know, but some of those issues that Khan has had in terms of communicating with his team, syncing up with them for team fights and skirmishes, and where he's supposed to be outside of lane specifically, those were also evident on SKT in their losses. And so you have like the SKT that perfect gamed BBQ, and then you have the SKT that lost to Damwon that looked really kind of confused and out of sync. I think they'll improve with time. The Khan thing only worries me because it's something I've seen from him on other rosters. I think their jungle situation is also very interesting because if you've seen anything from Clid from his time on JDG, very aggressive, sometimes without vision or pushing lanes and gets punished for it. And if you know anything about Haru, he was also someone who has been punished for similar things, right? So you still have these two very aggressive junglers, and we'll see how they fit on SKT, because I will say, like, SKT has always tried to shed that image of, like, we ruin our junglers, we want them all to be Bengi. And this is the year that they can do it, because both these junglers are very different than Bengi.
So Emily, really quick, just because people in the chat were wondering, is Haru or Clid their established jungler?
Clid
for
is
now. Yeah. Okay, Clid is for now. Okay, you were saying your next point. Sorry.
Oh no, I just love. I think their bot lane is going to be sick.
Their bot lane.
So obviously, you have Mata, who people should know if they've been following competitive League of Legends at all in the past, like since 2014. And then, so I feel like his name kind of speaks for itself. But Teddy, man, all last year we were saying, get Teddy a team. Like, now he has a team, and I'm so happy. Like, I can't wait. Like, everyone's looking for Faker. They're looking for, like, Khan to pop off. I'm looking at Teddy. I think he's great, and I think this is going to be his year.
So do you two think that this is going to be a strong year for SKT, or are you still approaching with, like, a little bit of hesitancy? No? Strong, straight off?
It's going to be a strong year. Yeah.
All right, sweet. I'm loving it.
Even if they take time to come together, I think they're going to be really strong.
I'm loving it. So strong year for SKT, but I think this is like this question that's on a lot of people's minds after 2018. Is this going to be a strong year for the LCK in general? Because 2018, like, I think, I mean, not even to sound too harsh, but I feel like that was just a straight failure from them, from consistently making it to top 2, basically. I don't even want to say top 4 because they didn't make it to the top 4, but usually what happened to Korea, essentially? And is this the year? So we have SKT kind of coming back, like, they look strong. We have even the, I don't want to say amateur, but like Griffin, Damwon, those are teams that we're also getting excited for. So is this a stronger LCK than from last year? And is this a team that's just going to dominate internationally? Or, excuse me, a region that's going to do well internationally? Emily, if you want to start.
So I have the same, some of the same reservations, which I talked about kind of in the Griffin section, I think. I will say, I think it's going to be hard for a lot of these organizations to suddenly go from kind of being a region that really focused on playing a certain meta to the best of its ability, right? Like, that's what Korea was always known for, in my opinion, was if you look at Korea, you will see the most optimal way to play the game. Like, that was their reputation, right? Whereas over in China, we have, like, it's all about the 1v1. And as teams are coming together, that's always kind of been at the backbone of forming these teams and their play style, is that I still think like blah 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 Chinese aggression is a meme, but a backbone of like how they would pick their players or how teams would value players would be like, how well did they do in the 1v1, and I'm going after you, like in lane, like I'm coming for you. It's not about how the team's playing, it's about how I'm going to destroy you. And I do think it might be difficult for some of these orgs to kind of transition into that mentality, which is why what I praised Damwon for. If you look at LCK last year, there really weren't a lot of strong early game teams. I'd actually put Hanwha Life, like last year's Hanwha Life, up there as like having one of the strongest early games in the region, even though their mid to late game was like highly questionable and, like I said, cost them playoffs. So I'm looking for. I do think it's better. I do think a lot of the top teams made some really solid roster moves, specifically in like Griffin keeping their lineup. I'm curious about Gen.G and obviously SKT we mentioned. But I'm really looking at the new team in Damwon and how Griffin will perform. Because I think they'll be kind of their play style and how well they do will kind of be a good barometer for me in terms of where Korea is at.
All right, Ashley, you're LCK expert. Let us know, what have you been hearing from the insides on all the teams? Like, are people nervous, or are they just coming in fully confident, ready to give it 110%?
So I think that's another thing about the Korean scene. There's always so much this insane pressure to deliver, like that. Hey, it's either you win or it's not acceptable. So it's difficult to say whether there is more pressure than last year, because every year coming into the next year, Koreans team had insane amount of pressure on their shoulder. And part of the reason why I think that teams started to crumble in 2018 was people expected at least 2 Korean teams in the semifinals, and I almost feel like the pressure didn't do them any good. So they're starting fresh this year. They're more determined to reclaim the crown, so to speak. I agree with Emily that all the coaching staff is fully aware that the stagnation of playstyle and meta is what cost Korea so heavily in the international tournaments, and all the coaching staff is trying to switch it up, so to speak. At least the teams that have at least some chance in international tournament, SKT, Gen.G, KT, Afreeca. I agree with Emily that introduction of Griffin and Damwon is going to offer up a lot of challenging competition in how teams approach their playstyle in the current meta, and I think that's going to do a lot of benefit to LCK scene overall. So I think I'm excited, and I think the biggest, like, a breaking point will be whether it's SKT, Griffin, or some other team that makes it to MSI. I think that's going to change how LCK perceives itself in the summer split. And yeah, I think that's actually going to be a turning point. Which team does make it to MSI?
All right, guys, before we move on to our questions from the chat, I want to go ahead and get your top 5 teams for the region predictions. Ashley, do you want to start?
Okay, so I recently made a bet on another podcast that if Kingzone goes, I don't know why I made the bet. It was like a random bet that came through. If Kingzone goes to playoffs, I get paid for the next international tournament, the flight tickets. But I'm not gonna let that bias me. I'm just gonna go with on top of my head. So, is it in order, or do I just
in order? Give me your number one. Give me your number one.
Spring split or the entire year?
Emily, you choose spring split or the entire year?
I say spring split because that's what we did for LPL.
That's
going
fair.
Like right now, I have my top 5 going into the split.
Yeah, let's just do the split. We don't know if something crazy happens. Faker comes to NA.
Okay.
It's gonna happen. Just wait for it.
I'm waiting for my revenge arc. I'm waiting for my revenge arc. This is the year. If it's only for spring split, I have to go Griffin number 1. I may have given a different answer if we had to account for the entire year, but it does take a while for teams to get their synergy up together, especially for teams like SKT, where there are so many aggression and different opinions and strong personalities like squashed into a single roster. So I have to go with Griffin. if we just account for Spring Split. For the second place, I would say SKT, even though people were like, oh my god, SKT lost to Damwon Gaming at Casper Cup. What does it mean? Are they going to be placed to 7th like last year? No, it's not going to happen. This is obviously an upgrade on every single lane except for Baker compared to last year. High expectations for Teddy and Mara, and even for Clids, just like Emily mentioned. SKT will have to be my second place. And for the third place, this is where it gets really interesting.
How's it getting interesting, Ashley? Tell me.
It just, like, there have been so many roster changes, and all the teams have made at least 2 big changes in the roster, and I have to go with Afreeca Freecs, surprisingly.
Afreeca Freecs, good heavens! No, I'm just kidding. Keep going, girl. Keep going, girl. You got 2 left to give.
Yeah. Like, I know that people hype up Kang heavily just because, you know, he is one of those people who makes really good highlight videos where he goes like in 1v3, but overall, as a top laner and how much contribution that player makes to the team, I think that Keen is the #1 top laner in LCK at the moment, and the fact that they kept Keen is such a big deal. And I rate Yukao pretty highly, and given that he's 17 and he's very ambitious and proactive on where he wants to go in the international stage, I think that Yukao has a high ceiling and only has a room to grow. So very strong top laner and the mid laner. Aiming and Jelly. So the thing about Afreeca this year is they have quite a young roster. Aiming and Jelly is both very young. Jelly, I've seen good things about Jelly in Casper Cup, and Aiming is a very mechanically strong player who is always seen at the top 100 place in the Korean solo queue. And even though he has a bit of mentality issues and he sometimes makes wrong calls in big stages, as long as Aiming gets that sorted out, I think we will have a decent bot lane. So if you look at everything together, I think I'll have to place Afreeca Freecs or KT Rolster on 3rd place.
Got it. So we'll just put KT Rolster as your 4th, and really quick, what's your 5th?
Oh, it's like Gen.G or Damwon Gaming.
I'm gonna say Dam. I'm gonna say Dam. Dam's in there. She said it. You heard it here first. Top 5 going to playoffs. Ashley, if they don't, you can destroy her on Twitter at Ashley Kang.
Okay, I'm gonna go with Jin.G.
Come at her. Nope. She said Dam. All right, Emily, your top 5.
So it's Griffin 1, SKT 2.
Nice.
I actually put, so this is for Spring, like going into Spring Split.
Yeah, all good.
I put Gen.G 3rd, if only because
Ashley, what are you doing?
Really like Life, and he's been, even though he wasn't starting for the team, he's been with the team for a while, so he has experience with them, and they changed the least amount. And I think as a lot of these other rosters try to struggle to maybe come together because they changed more pieces, that's when I think Gen.G will be taking series early in the spring against some of these teams, even if maybe later on in the Spring Split or later on in the year they end up surpassing Gen.G. So that's actually why I have them so high. KT 4 and then Afreeca 5.
I like these top 5 lists. I like how Griffin is at the top along with SKT. I like how you both have decided that Griffin is going to best SKT. Now, is that what you honestly think, or is that almost like a little bit of hope? Ashley, you kind of told me that you think that there's going to be like a lot of opposing opinions, but Emily, what about you?
I think SKT will be one of the reasons why I have SKT so high, even though they changed like every single piece, right? Is because they have the just like raw mechanical talent on that team to beat up on a lot of these other rosters, even as they are coming together, trying to figure out their communication system, trying to figure out their synergy, like any new team. That's why I rate them so highly. So if they continue to improve, I actually think they overtake all other LCK teams by the end of, maybe by the end of spring, but probably by summer if things work out and the roster just doesn't like implode for some reason. So that's why they're 2 right now, because again, Griffin have the pre-existing synergy. They hung out onto these players, and they're so young. Like, I feel like people hate to hear like, well, this team, like, you know, they have a lot of upside, or I think they have a lot of potential, because you're dealing in nebulous terms where you're kind of estimating how well a person can improve. But we have seen how Griffin have improved and adjusted throughout an entire split. I mentioned Tarzan, and how he adjusted to his opponents and became like a significantly better jungler at the end of the split than he was at the beginning of it. And I think that's really important. And we've already seen Griffin has the ability to do that. So they should continue, you know, theoretically, to improve as a team this split as well.
Both of you guys have me super excited for the start of LCK. I'm pretty pumped. We can take a couple questions from chat, and then I know Ashley has to run off. Ashley, how are you on time right now?
If I go in the next 15 minutes, I should be fine.
All right, let's just do 1 or 2 questions. Dun, 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 dun. All right, here's a really good one. More hype-worthy change. This is from Silent449. More hype-worthy change. SKT's rebuild or Papa Smithy's beard? This is for anyone. Anyone can take this question.
SKT rebuild.
SKT rebuild.
And you're both wrong. That's the incorrect answer. That's the incorrect answer. I'm sorry. There was only one answer, and you answered it incorrectly. Here's a serious question from Silent. Is UCal ready to take over Faker's spot as the best mid in LCK? Is this a statement you agree with?
Spot.
BDD has that spot.
Yeah.
Ooh, okay, I like.
I don't even think that's a controversial opinion anymore. Like, I think, as Ashley talked about, like, Faker really looked lost last year, and he was feeling a lot of pressure, and he's even said so. There's a really good InVen interview with him that's out. Yeah. But yeah, like, I think BDD right now has that spot as the best performing mid. Now, if you're talking about, like, the best player to ever play the game, yeah, it's still Faker.
Yeah, you can't knock him out. But someone raises a good one. Mellow Vibe says that Faker is not even top 3 anymore. Would you agree with that?
No, I would not agree with that. I think UCal has like I hate to say this, but you end up saying it with young players, right? Because you are ascribing potential to them based on what you've seen. UCal still makes a lot of mistakes outside of lane in terms of how he moves or in team fighting. And I think those because already we saw them, like, watch his first game with KT on Talia, which is like one of his best champions. Watch him in that game, and then watch him in any game towards the end of the split, and you will see like dramatic improvement. So I have no doubt that he's shown that he can continue to improve. I think the thing with UCal for me is I'm wondering how he will sync up with his new junglers. Because Score is known as, even though I know a lot of people really heavily criticized him actually for being quite passive early, I think he's still a very intelligent pathing jungler, and I think he did a lot for UCal this past year to help get him to the level he was at the end of the year. So now I'm curious to see him with Spirit, again, another like veteran jungler, and we'll see how he does.
Got it. Ashley, I have one for you from Kendrick Star. There's a lot of letters in that name. Why so much confidence in Griffin when they have never won a split or made it to Worlds versus veteran teams?
So Griffin only played 1 split in LCK, and they came second place in that split. So if the question is, why didn't they make it? They only played 1 split so far, and like Emily said, during that 10, 12 weeks, we've seen this roster made out of 17, 18 years old kids grow so much. And synergy is always a big thing. Just like League of Legends isn't like a football manager where you get, okay, so this player is 95, this player is 80, so we add all the points together. Synergy is a very big thing, and Griffin already has a good synergy that's only gonna keep getting better as the season progresses. So yeah. And also I'm gonna add
What did you want to add really quick?
So because Emily and I talked about the teamwork of Griffin for quite a while, we forgot to mention that all of the Griffin players are top tier players in the Korean solo queue, which is usually a good indicator on how good they are mechanically. Tarzan especially is known for putting up to 3 accounts on the top 10 of this Korean solo queue at a time. So individually, they are all very mechanically good players. We just talk about the team fight all the time.
Sweet. I think we could do... Oh, this is a nice question. I like this question. It's a little bit more meta-based than purely LCK-based knowledge from Jasmine. Most valuable position going into the season. What do you think?
Jungle or mid?
Jungle or mid? What do you think, Emily?
Possibly.
Going into this season?
Yeah. I was talking with a couple people and they were telling me that mid is like busted right now and bot feels sad.
Yeah. I'm going to say mid, if only because a lot of the jungle picks I saw were kind of a few more farming options for like either damage carries late or like post level 6 ganking, which means that you need to have a very strong mid laner holding mid in order to basically just keep your jungler safe, because you don't want the opposing jungler invading on them.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I agree with that. I think we could do one more small question and then we can release Ashley. Ashley, are you allowed to share what you're doing? Do you want to just share what you're doing for our last question?
Are you?
So I'll be doing coverage for LCK throughout the year. You can follow my Twitter. Shameless sellout, by the way. I will be attending most LCK matches live at their new venue, Lowell Park, which is really, really cool venue, by the way. I'll be doing video interviews with the LCK players, and because I'm bilingual, I usually conduct the interviews in Korean and try to subtitle them later, which I think provides more rapport as well as deeper insight into the players. So I'll be doing that with ESPN as well as possibly other outlets throughout spring split. So yeah, if you want to check out what the LCK players are doing,
Ashley kicks a lot of LCK ass, so everyone please go follow her. You could see, like she said, a lot of her content either on Twitter, on Horizon, or on the ESPN Esports YouTube channel. That's where she uploads a lot of her videos. Do you still edit them all yourself, or are you passing on that work to someone else now?
I do all the subtitles because
she does all the subtitles herself. She is a hard-working woman. Don't need no subtitler.
Sub team. You should go into like K-dramas or.
Yeah,
she makes like a ton of money.
Make bank in that. Emily, is there anything that you want to plug before we head out?
I have a piece on Gen.G coming out, actually, where I talked to the team about their new lineup building and the aforementioned we need to become more aggressive mentality that not only they had, but just like a lot of teams had going into the split. So if you're at all curious about how teams approach the off season or about how organizations take a look at existing lineups versus how they want to rebuild, it should be interesting. I like it. They gave me some really good interviews. So
awesome. Well, Emily's going to kick butt. Everyone, please go follow both Emily and Ashley on Twitter. Everyone, thank you so much for watching. This is the second version, or the second iteration of our preview show. We just did LPL. If you haven't seen that, that is on my YouTube channel. I think my YouTube channel is still called Broken Chopsticks. But if you just type in Ovilee May, my YouTube channel is sure to pop up, and you can watch the LPL version there, as well as the LCK version that will be uploaded tomorrow, basically. That's when I usually upload it after we finish our stream. We are also going to
follow Ovilee because she's amazing and she's doing all videos.
Yeah, sweet. You're so sweet. But yeah, you guys can follow me on Twitter as well, or you can follow me on Twitch if you are watching on Twitch right now. And if you have any Twitch Primes, sellout mode. But yes, we will be doing LCS and the LEC. Hopefully we'll do spring preview shows sometime this week as well. I'm going to get together with Emily and we're going to try to find our next guest. But if you guys have an idea for a guest, let me know and we will try to get them. No Vedius. We don't want Vedius for LEC. That's the only rule. No Vedius.
Wow, you guys still fighting over anime?
Terrible taste in anime.
Yeah, okay.
Terrible taste in anime. All right, okay, so this is going to be us signing off and ending the show. Everyone, thank you so much for watching.